courtroom smelled like old wood and fresh lies. I sat in the third row, watching my wife of 26 years arrange her face into something that might pass for wounded dignity. Allison wore navy, always navy when she wanted to look trustworthy, and her lawyer stood beside her like a peacock in an expensive suit. Victor Harlan, the man whose face decorated half the billboards between here and the interstate. "I fight for you," the posters screamed, right above his unnaturally white smile. What they didn't mention was his track record. 1 win in his last 100 cases. I'd done my homework. Before we continue, we ask you to hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We would like to get to know our audience better. "Your Honor," Victor began, and his voice filled the room like he was announcing the second coming. "My client has been financially erased by a man who promised to build a life with her. Instead, he built walls of secrecy, walls of deception." The judge, Patterson, a man who looked like he'd been carved from irritation and case law, didn't even glance up from his notes. Victor continued. "Mrs. Sollace contributed equally to their empire. She managed the finances. She made the company work. And now, in his petty vindictiveness, Mr. Sollace attempts to deny her what is rightfully hers." Allison leaned forward then, right on cue. She'd practiced this moment. "I'm taking half your millions, Graham." Her voice carried across the silent courtroom. "Including that $15 million estate your grandmother left you." The whispers started immediately. Behind me, someone gasped. Allison smiled. She actually smiled. That's when I stood up. I walked forward slowly, my boots clicking on the old tile floor. I'd worn my work boots, the good ones, broken in from 1,000 job sites. Just a man who built things, including trusts. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope. Nora, my lawyer, had prepared 3 copies. I handed one to the judge. "Your Honor," I said, "I think you'll want to check again." Judge Patterson's eyebrows rose slightly. He opened the envelope, slid out the papers, and began to read. I watched his face. Years of watching construction inspectors had taught me to read expressions. He looked up at Allison. Then he laughed. Not a polite chuckle. A real laugh. The kind that started deep in his chest and rolled out like thunder. "Mrs. Sollace," he said, and now everyone in the courtroom leaned forward. "Do you know what this document is?" Allison's smile had frozen. What document?" "An irrevocable trust." Patterson held up the papers. "Established 4 years ago. The estate in question was placed in trust for Mr. Sollace's grandchildren, with very specific terms that explicitly exclude any claims from divorcing spouses." The color drained from Allison's face. Victor grabbed the second copy I'd handed him and started flipping through pages, his movements increasingly frantic. "This is," he sputtered. "This can't be legal. This is fraud. This is perfectly legal," Patterson interrupted. "Filed with the county, notarized, and executed with full legal counsel, which you would have known, Mr. Harlan, had you done even basic due diligence." The judge set the papers down and folded his hands. "Mrs. Sollace, you have exactly 0 claim to that $15 million. In fact, if your counsel continues throwing around accusations of fraud without evidence, I'll consider sanctions." Victor was still talking, his voice rising. Something about hidden assets and manipulation. Patterson's gavel came down like a gunshot. "Mr. Harlan, sit down. This hearing is adjourned until you can present actual evidence instead of television drama." I walked back to my seat. Nora gave me the smallest nod. Behind us, I heard phones buzzing. By tonight, this would be everywhere. She thought this was checkmate. She hadn't even noticed I was playing a different game. The hallway outside was chaos. I kept my head down and moved toward the exit, but Allison's voice cut through the noise. "Graham." I stopped, turned. She was standing 10 feet away, Victor beside her looking like a scolded dog. Her carefully arranged composure had cracked. "You stole from me," she hissed. "That money was supposed to be ours." "I protected my family's legacy," I said quietly, "from people who see it as just another asset to divide. I built that company with you." "You manage the books. There's a difference." Her face twisted. Then she smiled again, and it was worse than her anger. "The estate doesn't matter," she said. "I'll take the company instead. The real company. The brand, the reputation. Your little paper tricks won't save you from that." She turned and walked away, heels clicking on marble. Drew appeared from somewhere in the crowd. My son, 30 years old, looking uncomfortable in a suit. "Dad," he said, and his voice was carefully neutral. "This is getting ugly." "It was always ugly, Drew. We're just seeing it clearly now." "Mom says you're trying to leave her with nothing." Your mother has been leaving me with nothing for 3 years. I'm just finally noticing. I don't want to choose sides. Then don't, I said, but don't pretend there aren't sides to choose. He nodded slowly, then walked away toward where Allison was standing with Victor. I saw Zoe in that crowd. My daughter, 26, phone in hand. She was filming something, probably another one of her heartfelt social media posts about her poor victimized mother. Nora touched my elbow. We should go. We left through a side door. Outside, the November air hit my face like a splash of cold water. My phone buzzed, a notification from one of those local news apps. Divorce hearing erupts. Wife claims millions, gets nothing. Below it, someone had already posted video from inside the courtroom. Another notification. This one from Zoe's social media. She'd posted a photo of Allison in the hallway looking devastated with a caption, "When the man you loved for 26 years shows you who he really is. My mother deserves better. We all do." 300 likes already, growing by the second. We reached my truck, the same Ford F-250 I'd been driving for 8 years. "What's next?" I asked Nora as she climbed into the passenger seat. "Tomorrow we get the formal hearing on the company ownership. Allison's going to argue that her contributions entitle her to majority control. Can she win that? Normally? No, but Victor's dumb and loud, which means he might stumble into something that works by accident. I started the engine. Then we make sure there are no accidents. Graham." Her voice was serious now. "How far are you willing to go?" "As far as it takes?" I pulled out of the parking lot and onto the street. "My grandmother used to tell me something," I said. She'd say, "Graham, a man who builds with glass better make sure his foundation can't crack." She knew what she was doing when she set up those trusts. She knew exactly what kind of people would come after them. She didn't trust Allison. She called her a paper charmer, someone who looked good on paper but crumbled when you actually examined the details. We drove in silence for a while. I was thinking about the company, about the jobs we had lined up, about the high-rise project on 4th Avenue. Before everything fell apart, before I started noticing things. Little things at first. Emails I wasn't copied on, meetings I wasn't invited to, then bigger things. Money moving in ways it shouldn't, contracts signed with my name but not my signature. A whole new LLC I'd never heard of. And through it all, Allison smiling, assuring me she had everything under control. I'd trusted her. Stupid. My phone rang. "Colin Brooks, my business partner for 20 years. "Tell me you saw what just happened in court," he said. "I was there, Colin." "Good, because we have a problem at the 4th Avenue site." I felt my stomach tighten. "What kind of problem?" "The kind where I showed up this morning and found a completely different crew working our job. The 4th Avenue site was supposed to be our showcase. 15 stories of residential luxury with floor-to-ceiling glass facades. We'd been working on it for 8 months. Now, as I pulled into the construction lot, I saw exactly what Colin meant. There were 2 crews, ours standing around looking confused, and another group, newer trucks, shinier equipment, already positioning a glass panel near the 4th floor framework. I parked and got out. Colin met me halfway across the gravel. "Started about an hour ago," he said. "Their foreman says he's got authorization from ownership." I walked toward the second crew. Their foreman was a guy I didn't recognize, mid-40s, built like he'd spent more time in gyms than on actual sites. "You Sollace?" he asked. "I'm Graham Sollace. This is my project." "Not according to this." He held up a tablet showing a work order. "Says here the project management has been transferred. You're listed as stepping back due to personal circumstances." I looked at the signature at the bottom. My name, my title, not my signature. "Who hired you?" "Can't discuss client details." "This is my company. I'm asking who contracted you." The foreman smiled. "Take it up with your business office, buddy. I'm just here to do a job." He turned away. Colin put a hand on my arm. "Not worth it." I walked over to where our crew was gathered. 8 guys, most of whom had been with me for years. "What happened?" I asked. Tommy, one of my best glaziers, spoke up. "We got here at 6 like always. Then these guys showed up around 7 with equipment and paperwork saying they were taking over." I pulled out my phone and dialed the office directly. It rang 4 times, then Allison's voice came on. "Graham," she said, and her tone was professionally pleasant. "I was wondering when you'd call. What are you doing?" "Protecting the company's interests. You've been distracted lately, but we have deadlines. You forged my signature on a work order." "I have signing authority as company accountant. The board approved it last month." "What board? We don't have a board." "We do now. I formed one. It's all legal." I looked at Colin. He was shaking his head. He knew nothing about this. What I think, Graham, is that you need to step back and let professionals handle this. You're emotionally compromised. She hung up. The foreman from the other crew shouted something to his guys. They started lifting a glass panel. A massive piece, probably 8 feet by 12 feet, triple glazed and heavy as sin. They were using the wrong rigging. I saw it immediately. The straps were positioned too close to the panel's edge. With that much weight, the stress distribution would be all wrong. "Wait," I shouted. The foreman looked over. "We got this, buddy. Your rigging's wrong. You need to—" "I've been installing glass for 15 years. I think I know what I'm doing." The panel started to swing. One of his guys, couldn't have been more than 22, was standing directly in the swing path. The wind picked up. I was already running. The panel caught the wind like a sail. The straps shifted. The kid's eyes went wide as several 100 pounds of glass swung toward him. I hit him from the side, shoving him clear. The panel's edge caught my shoulder, spinning me around. I grabbed the frame, using my weight to slow the swing, while Tommy and 2 others from my crew rushed in to secure the other side. For 5 seconds, we held it. Then we had it, stable, safe. I let go and stepped back, breathing hard. My shoulder throbbed. The foreman came over. "That was on you," he said, "interfering with our work. Your work almost ended someone. We had it under control. You had nothing under control. We're done here," he said. "Pack it up." When they were gone, Tommy approached me. "Boss, what's going on? Is the company actually splitting up?" "No," I said. "It's not." "We're with you, boss," Tommy said finally. "Whatever you need. Right now, I need you all to go home. Take the day. I'll call when we sort this out." Colin and I stood in the empty lot, looking up at the half-finished building. "She's really doing this," he said. "Yeah, and she's doing it smart. Work orders, board votes, safety concerns. It all looks legitimate on paper." "But it's not." "No, but proving that's going to take time." Colin was quiet for a moment. "When you were married, did you ever actually look at the books?" "She was the accountant. That was her job." "We both did. I signed things she put in front of me. Assumed you'd reviewed them first." I turned to look at him. "What kind of things?" "Contract modifications, vendor agreements, a few LLC formations for tax purposes," she said. "LLCs. We need to see everything," I said. "Every contract, every agreement, every piece of paper with our names on it." We went back to the main office. The receptionist looked up as we walked in. "Where's Allison?" "She left about an hour ago. Said she was meeting with consultants." "Did she take anything?" "Files, I think. Some boxes." Colin and I went to the back office. The filing cabinets were half empty. "She's been planning this," Colin said. I pulled open a drawer that still had files, started flipping through them. Invoices, mostly. Everything looked normal until I checked the payment information. "Colin, look at this." He came over. I showed him an invoice from 2 months ago. Major client, big payment. But the routing information at the bottom wasn't our usual account. "That's not our bank," Colin said. We went through more files. Maybe 30% of the invoices had the wrong routing information. "How much?" Colin asked. "Hundreds of thousands, probably." "That's fraud." I took photos of every page. Nora was going to need these. My phone rang. Drew. "Dad, we need to talk." "Now's not a great time, Drew." "Mom says you almost hurt someone at the construction site today. Says you're becoming unstable." I closed my eyes. Of course she did. "That's not what happened," I told him. The whole thing. He was quiet when I finished. "Mom's version was different," he said finally. "Drew, your mother is stealing from the company. I can prove it." "She says you'll say that." "Did she show you any evidence?" Silence on the line. "I'll show you mine. Come by the office tomorrow. I'll show you exactly what your mother's been doing." "Dad, tomorrow, Drew. If you want the truth, I'll give it to you." I hung up. We spent another hour documenting everything. By the time we finished, it was dark outside. I drove home. The place was empty. Allison had already moved out. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. Started going through emails, years of them. Found one immediately. 3 years ago, Allison had started a new email thread with someone named Jay Morrison. They were discussing asset protection strategies and ownership restructuring. I read through the thread. It was all coded language, but the intent was clear. They were planning how to separate me from the company. One email stood out. From Allison to Morrison. "Graham's good at the physical work, but doesn't understand the business side. Once we restructure, he'll just be a man with a truck. I can work with that." I sat there, coffee going cold, reading those words over and over. Just a man with a truck. 26 years. But she'd been building something else. Something that didn't include me except as a tool to be used and then discarded. My phone buzzed. Zoe's social media again. New post. A photo of herself and Allison. Caption. Date night with the strongest woman I know. She raised us, built a business, and never stopped fighting. That's real power. 800 likes. I closed the app, opened another email. This one from Victor Harlan to Allison, dated just 3 days ago. Don't worry about the trust. I found an angle. His grandmother's medical records show cognitive decline in her last year. We can argue she wasn't competent to sign. They were going after my grandmother, a woman who'd been sharper at 85 than most people at 50. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about winning the divorce. This was about making sure that when it was over, Allison's name would be toxic. I opened a new document on my laptop. Started writing. A blueprint. Because that's what I do. I build things. I was going to build Allison's destruction, and I was going to use her own plans to do it. Nora's office smelled like old books and new coffee. She sat across from me, reading through the emails I'd printed out, her expression getting darker with each page. This is bad, she said finally. I know. No, Graham, you don't. This isn't just divorce nastiness. This is conspiracy to commit fraud. If we can prove she actually moved money with intent to deceive, we can prove it. Look at the dates. Look at the accounts. She flipped through more pages. The Morrison emails are going to be tricky. They're vague enough that a good lawyer could argue they're just discussing legitimate business restructuring. Victor's not a good lawyer. No, but Allison might wise up and hire someone who is. She won't. Her ego won't let her. Victor's flashy and loud and tells her what she wants to hear. That's all she cares about. Nora set the papers down. What exactly do you want from this, Graham? What's the end game? I'd been thinking about that all night. I want her name removed from everything. The company, the estate, the family legacy. I want it so complete that in 10 years nobody remembers she was ever part of it. That's... Nora paused. That's scorched earth. Yes. You understand what you're asking for. This isn't just winning. This is annihilation. She started it. That's not a legal argument. Then here's one. She's been taking money from the company for years. She forged my signature. She set up fake corporate entities. She's turning our children against me with lies and social media, and now she's trying to ruin my late grandmother's reputation. Nora was quiet for a moment. Okay, she said. Let's say we do this. Let's say we go full nuclear. What's your plan? The investor presentation. What about it? Allison's got one scheduled next week. Big showcase at the 4th Avenue building. She's going to present herself as the new face of the company, the driving force behind our success. How do you know? Colin heard about it through the contractor network. She's been hyping it up, inviting major clients, potential investors. It's supposed to be her coronation. Nora leaned back in her chair. You want to sabotage it? I want to turn it into her confession. Explain. I pulled out my phone, showed her the photos I'd taken of the invoices with the wrong routing information. Every one of these proves she was diverting money, but they're just paper. They don't tell the story. They don't show intent. So we show intent. We show her emails about restructuring. We show the timeline of when she started planning this. We show that this wasn't a reaction to our marriage falling apart. This was the plan all along. And you're going to do this at her big presentation. In front of everyone who matters, investors, clients, colleagues, all the people she's been lying to. Nora drummed her fingers on the desk. It's risky. If we tip our hand too early, she'll scramble. Might actually hire competent help. Might cover her tracks better. She's too confident. She thinks she's already won. Confidence and stupidity aren't the same thing. No, but they travel together often enough. Nora smiled slightly at that. Okay, let's say I'm on board with this insane plan. How do we actually do it? I told her. It took 20 minutes to lay out all the details. When I finished, she was shaking her head. You're either brilliant or crazy. Can't it be both? Unfortunately, it usually is. She pulled out a legal pad and started making notes. We'll need access to the building's AV system. Can you get that? I'm still officially co-owner and the general contractor. Building management won't question me running a systems check. What about the content? The emails, the documents? All from company servers or my personal backups. Nothing hacked, nothing stolen. It's my company. I have every right to review financial records. Allison will argue privacy. Let her. She signed an agreement when we formed the LLC that both partners have full access to all company records. It's in the operating agreement, she wrote. Nora made another note. We need to be careful about how we present this. One wrong word, and she'll sue for defamation. Everything we show will be her own words, her own documents. How can it be defamation if it's true? You'd be surprised what lawyers can argue. Speaking of which, Victor. What about him? He's going to try something dramatic. That's his style. Big gestures, loud accusations. So we prepare for that. No, I said. We let him do it. Let him make his big show. Then we cut him off at the knees. Nora looked at me for a long moment. You've changed, she said. How? When you first came to me 6 months ago, you just wanted a fair settlement. Now you want vengeance. Not vengeance, justice. Sometimes those look the same. Sometimes they are the same. We spent another hour going over details, legal angles, timing, backup plans. By the time I left her office, the sun was setting. I drove to my grandmother's house, my inheritance, untouched since she passed. The old Victorian smelled of dust and memories. Her furniture was still there, her photos, her books. I went to her study, where she'd handled her affairs in her final years. In the third desk drawer, I found what I was looking for. Letters. Dozens of them in her careful handwriting. Some for me, some for Drew and Zoe, some for names I didn't know. I opened mine. She warned me about Allison. She'd noticed her interest in estate documents, her questions about trusts. She thinks I'm too old to notice. She's wrong. She wrote that she had already set up legal protections, but that I needed to be smart. Some people saw relationships as transactions. Don't let her take what I built. Don't feel guilty protecting yourself. It was dated 3 weeks before her passing. My phone rang. Colin. Where are you? Grandma's house. Good. Stay there. Allison just filed an emergency restraining order. Claims you threatened her. I felt cold anger settle. I haven't even seen her since court. Doesn't matter. She and Victor are spinning your erratic behavior. Hearings tomorrow at 9. Nora's notified. Good, I said. Good? Graham, if this goes through, it won't. And even if it does, it helps us. Every desperate move they make shows they're losing. You sound different. I'm done playing defense. Meaning? Tomorrow we start building the trap. Next week we spring it. After we hung up, I kept reading my grandmother's notes. She'd prepared everything. Scenarios, protections, contingencies. She'd seen all of this coming long before I had. At the bottom of her notebook, the final message. The best revenge isn't destruction, Graham. It's building something so solid nothing they do can touch it. Let them break themselves against your walls. I closed the notebook. Tomorrow, the restraining order hearing. Next week, the presentation. And after that, Allison would learn what it meant to fight someone who built real foundations. Not illusions, not paper empires. Real things that lasted. The restraining order hearing was in a smaller courtroom than the divorce proceedings. Judge Patterson wasn't presiding. We got Judge Morrison instead, a younger woman with a reputation for not tolerating nonsense. Victor Harlan stood as we entered, his suit somehow shinier than last time. Your Honor, he began, before Morrison had even fully sat down, we're here today because my client fears for her safety. Mr. Harlan, I'll tell you when to speak. Victor paused, looking confused. Morrison settled into her chair and opened a file. Mrs. Sollace, you're claiming your husband has threatened you. Allison stood. She'd dressed down for this. Jeans, a simple sweater, minimal makeup. The wounded wife costume. Not directly, Your Honor, but his behavior has become increasingly erratic. At a construction site 2 days ago, he physically assaulted workers. That's a lie, I said. Morrison held up a hand. Mr. Sollace, you'll have your turn. Mrs. Sollace, continue. He's been sending threatening emails, making comments to colleagues about destroying me. I don't feel safe. Do you have these emails? Allison looked at Victor. He pulled out a folder. We have printouts, Your Honor. Morrison took them, read through them slowly. Her expression didn't change. Mrs. Sollace, these emails discuss business matters. I don't see any threats. The tone, Your Honor, the underlying message. The underlying message appears to be that Mr. Sollace disagrees with your management decisions. That's not a threat. Victor jumped in. Your Honor, it's the pattern of behavior, the aggression, Mr. Harlan, I've reviewed your filing. It's thin, very thin. My client's fear is genuine. I'm sure it is. But fear alone isn't grounds for a restraining order. Do you have any evidence of actual threats? Any witnesses to threatening behavior? Victor flipped through his papers. The construction workers, Have any of them filed complaints? Well, no, but have any of them given statements? We're still gathering. So, no. Morrison closed the file. Mrs. Sollace, I'm denying your request. If Mr. Sollace makes actual threats or engages in actually threatening behavior, come back with real evidence. Allison's face went red. Your Honor, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. This appears to be an attempt to use the court to gain advantage in your divorce proceedings. I don't appreciate that. Morrison stood. We're done here. In the hallway, Allison was already on her phone, furious while Victor tried to soften the defeat. Nora touched my arm. Don't gloat. I'm not. Outside, Drew waited, torn, conflicted. Dad, he said. Mom told me you threatened her. The judge said you didn't. I didn't? Then why would she lie? Because she's losing control. He looked back at his mother, clearly shaken. I don't know what to believe anymore. Then come see the evidence yourself. Bring your own accountant if you want. He considered this, then nodded. Tomorrow. The next day, Drew arrived alone. Zoe refused to come. Colin and I had laid everything out. 3 years of invoices, bank statements, emails, across the conference table. That's a lot of paper, Drew murmured. Start anywhere. He picked up an invoice, frowned at the routing number. That's not your account. Check the next one. He did, and another, and another. How many? Roughly 30% of all incoming payments over 2 years. That's impossible. It's real, and here's the email chain where your mother discusses setting it up. I handed him the printouts. As he read, the color drained from his face. She said this was for tax purposes. That's one way to describe fraud. Drew sat heavily. How much money? About $400,000. Where did it go? Personal accounts. New LLCs. Some we still can't trace. He put his head in his hands. Zoe will say you faked all this. She can verify the bank statements herself. Whether she chooses to is up to her. He looked up. What are you going to do? Report it legally. And next week, at her big presentation, I'm going to show everyone exactly what she did. That will destroy her. Yes, she's still my mother. I know, and I'm sorry, but I won't let her get away with it. He stood, shaken. I need to think. Take your time. At the door, he paused. For what it's worth, I believe you. After he left, Colin came in. Think he'll warn her? Maybe. Doesn't matter. Her ego won't let her cancel the presentation. And if she does? Then we go public another way, but she won't. We spent the rest of the day preparing. Colin leveraged his contacts. Getting access to the building's AV system was easy. That evening, I met with Russell, the AV tech who'd worked on several of our projects. So, you want the conference room feed routable to the lobby screens? He asked. For transparency. Investors like seeing the presentation in real time. Makes sense. I can set that up. You want control access? Just in case something goes wrong with the main system. He nodded, tapping on his tablet. No problem. I'll give you admin access to the backup feed controls. Thanks, Russell. Anything for you, Mr. Sollace. You guys always pay on time. That night, Colin and I returned to the building. We had legitimate reasons, final safety checks, equipment staging, so no one questioned us. Russell had already set up the AV system. For 2 hours, we loaded alternative content into the backup feed. All of it from company servers, all vetted by Nora. Every document, email, and clip was legal. This is either brilliant or insane, Colin said. You've said that. It's still true. By midnight, everything was ready. Allison's presentation would run normally until I triggered the switch. Then the truth would play across the screens. We left through the service entrance. My truck was parked 2 blocks away to avoid being seen. When I got home, a legal notice was taped to my door. Victor had filed another motion, this time challenging the trust itself, using my grandmother's medical records to argue she wasn't competent when she signed the documents. I read it twice. A cold anger settled in my chest. She had been sharp to the very end, and now they were trying to rewrite her as a confused old woman manipulated into protecting her estate. I called Nora. I saw it, she said immediately. It's desperate. Can they win? No, but Victor can stall and make noise. That's all this is. How do we stop it? We don't. Let them waste their energy. We focus on next week. They're attacking my grandmother. And when we're done, everyone will know it. That will be part of her legacy, that she was right about Allison all along. After we hung up, I sat in the dark, thinking of my grandmother, her letters, her warnings, the protections she built because she understood exactly who Allison was. My phone buzzed. Zoe had posted a photo, a smiling picture of her and Allison at a restaurant. Caption: Grateful for strong women who don't back down. My mom taught me to fight for what's right, no matter who stands against you. It already had over 1,000 likes. I didn't open the comments. The next court hearing was about the trust. Judge Patterson was back, looking even more irritated than usual. Victor stood and launched into his argument about my grandmother's declining mental state. He had medical records, testimony from a neighbor who'd seen her confused once, a whole narrative about manipulation and undue influence. It was actually impressive in a grotesque way. Patterson listened without expression. When Victor finally finished, Patterson turned to Nora. Response? Nora stood. She didn't have Victor's theatrics. She just had facts. Your Honor, Mrs. Eleanor Sollace was examined by 3 separate physicians in the month before she established the trust. All 3 certified her as mentally competent. Their reports are in our filing. She handed up documents. Additionally, the trust was drafted by one of the state's most respected estate attorneys, who spent 6 hours in consultation with Mrs. Sollace. His notes indicate she was clear, coherent, and very specific about her wishes. More documents. Mr. Harlan's argument relies on cherry-picked moments and hearsay. The actual medical evidence overwhelmingly supports Mrs. Sollace's competency. Patterson reviewed the papers. Mr. Harlan, did you review any of this before filing? Your Honor, we were acting on information from... Did you review the actual medical records? Victor hesitated. We reviewed what we had access to, which apparently wasn't the relevant records. Patterson set the papers down. Motion denied. The trust stands as written. And Mr. Harlan, if you bring me another motion this poorly researched, I'll start considering sanctions. In the hallway afterward, Allison was furious. Not at Victor, at me. You turned my children against me, she hissed as I walked past. Drew looked at the evidence, that's all. You manipulated him, just like you manipulated your grandmother. I stopped, turned to face her. My grandmother saw you clearly. That's why she protected her estate. She knew exactly what you'd do if you got the chance. She was a bitter old woman who poisoned you against me. She was the smartest person I've ever known. And she was right about you? Allison's face twisted. Next week, at the presentation, I'm going to show everyone who really built that company, and when I'm done, you'll be nothing but a name on old paperwork. I'm looking forward to it. She walked away, Victor trailing behind her like a scolded dog. Colin met me at the truck. She has no idea, does she? None, I said. She actually thinks she's going to win. What if something goes wrong? What if the system fails, or... Then we have backups, hard copies, court filings. We can get the information out a dozen different ways, but it won't come to that. You're very confident. I'm very prepared. There's a difference. The next few days passed slowly. I worked on other projects, kept my head down, avoided anywhere Allison might be. Drew called once. We didn't talk about the divorce, just normal father-son stuff. It felt strange and good at the same time. Zoe didn't call. On Friday, Colin forwarded me the final invitation list for the presentation. Over 100 people. Major investors, potential clients, industry journalists, even a few local politicians. Allison had gone all out. She'd rented the top-floor conference room at the 4th Avenue building. The same building where I'd saved that kid from the swinging glass panel. There was probably symbolism in that, but I didn't care enough to figure it out. You ready for this? Colin asked. Yes. No doubts? Not even one. Saturday, I drove out to my grandmother's house again. I wasn't sure why. Maybe I needed to feel connected to her. Maybe I just needed the quiet. I sat in her study, surrounded by her books and papers, and thought about what was coming. Part of me knew this was extreme, that I was taking something that could have been settled quietly and turning it into a public spectacle. But the other part, the part that had read those emails, seen those forged signatures, watched my own children turn against me because of carefully constructed lies, that part felt no guilt at all. Allison had started this war 3 years ago. She'd just been subtle enough that I hadn't noticed until recently. Now I was going to finish it, on her terms, in front of her audience, using her own weapons against her. My phone buzzed, a text from Nora. Everything's set. See you Monday, I typed back. See you there. Then I sat in the quiet study, watching the afternoon light fade through the old Victorian windows, and waited for Monday to come. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. I put on my best suit, not because I needed to impress anyone, but because I wanted to look like someone who belonged in that room. Colin picked me up at 8. We didn't talk much on the drive downtown. What was there to say? We'd planned everything down to the minute. The 4th Avenue building looked finished now. The glass facade caught the morning sun, throwing light across the street. It really was beautiful work. We went in through the main entrance. Security waved us through. We were on the contractor list. The presentation didn't start until 10, but we wanted time to check the setup. Russell met us in the lobby. "System's good to go," he said. "Conference room feed is active. Lobby screens are showing the waiting screen." "And the backup controls?" He handed me a tablet. "Everything's here. Main feed, backup feed, volume, everything. Just like we discussed." "Thanks, Russell." "No problem. Good luck up there." We took the elevator to the top floor. The conference room was already set up. There were rows of chairs facing a small stage and a massive screen. The AV equipment hummed quietly. Colin walked the perimeter, checking sight lines and camera angles. I stayed near the back, tablet in hand, making sure I could access the controls. At 9:30, people started arriving. Investors in expensive suits, clients I recognized from years of work, a few journalists with cameras and recorders. By 9:45, the room was nearly full. At 9:50, Allison arrived. She wore red. Bright, confident red. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup was perfect. She looked like someone who was about to win. Victor was with her, of course, along with two people I didn't recognize, probably the consultants she'd mentioned. She saw me in the back row and smiled. Not a friendly smile, a predatory one. I smiled back. At exactly 10, Allison stepped onto the stage. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here." Her voice was strong, clear. She had presence. I'd give her that. "Today, I want to talk about the future of Sollace Glass and Facade, about where we've been, where we are, and where we're going." She clicked a remote. The screen behind her lit up with the company logo. 26 years ago, I helped build something from nothing. A small window installation business that grew into one of the region's premier glass contractors. I felt Colin tense beside me. That wasn't how it had happened. She'd come in 5 years after I'd started the company. But I stayed quiet. Let her talk. Along the way, there have been challenges, changes, growing pains, but through it all, one thing has remained constant: our commitment to quality, innovation, and client service. She was good at this. The room was listening, engaged. Today, I'm pleased to announce a new chapter, a restructuring that will position us for the next 26 years of growth and success. She clicked the remote again. The screen should have shown her carefully crafted slideshow about new management structures and expanded services. Instead, it showed an email, her email, to Jay Morrison, the consultant, dated 3 years ago. "Graham's good at the physical work, but doesn't understand the business side. Once we restructure, he'll just be a man with a truck." The room went silent. Allison stared at the screen. "That's not... what is..." She clicked the remote again. Another email appeared, this one discussing how to gradually move control of client accounts without my knowledge. Click. Another email, this one with a spreadsheet showing diverted payments. Click. Another. Allison spun toward the AV booth, but Russell wasn't there. She looked at Victor, who was frantically pressing buttons on his own tablet. I stayed in my seat, watching. The screen shifted to a bank statement, her personal account, deposits that matched the diverted company payments perfectly. Someone in the audience said, "What is this?" Allison found her voice. "This is a technical malfunction. These documents are taken out of context. This is..." The screen cut to audio, her voice, crystal clear. "Once I get the company and that trust, Graham will just be a man with a truck. He'll have nothing." Victor stood up. "This is illegal. This is corporate espionage. This is..." "Public record," I said from the back of the room. Everyone turned to look at me. I stood up. "Everything you're seeing is from company servers that Mrs. Sollace, as company accountant, maintained. Bank records that she filed, emails that she sent, all of it accessible to any co-owner reviewing company finances." One of the investors, Thompson, major client for 5 years, stood up. "Mr. Sollace, are you saying these funds were misappropriated?" "I'm saying that over the last 2 years, approximately 30% of company revenue was routed to accounts Mrs. Sollace controls personally." "That's a lie," Allison shouted. "He's trying to destroy me because I filed for divorce." "The divorce was filed 6 months ago," I said calmly. "These emails and transactions go back 3 years." Another investor stood. "Mrs. Sollace, can you explain these routing changes?" "They were for tax purposes. Perfectly legitimate corporate restructuring." "Then where are the corporate filings?" asked someone else. "Where are the board minutes approving this?" Allison looked at Victor. Victor looked at his tablet like it might have answers. The screen changed again, this time showing a forged signature, mine, on a share transfer document I'd never seen. Mrs. Sollace also created this document, I said, supposedly transferring majority control to her. I never signed it. A handwriting expert has already confirmed the signature is fraudulent. The whispers in the room grew louder. Thompson stood again. Mrs. Sollace, this is extremely serious. If these allegations are true, they're not true. He's manipulating you all. She stopped. Her face had gone white. The screen now showed a video, security footage from the 4th Avenue site, the day with the swinging glass panel. You could see everything, the improper rigging, the wind catching the panel, me running in to push the kid clear. Then it cut to a different angle. Allison arriving 10 minutes later, talking to the foreman, pointing at me, gesturing angrily. No audio, but the body language was clear. When the video ended, the screen went dark. Nobody spoke. Allison looked around the room like a trapped animal. Then she spotted me heading toward the door. You can't just leave, she screamed. You can't. But I was already walking out. Colin followed. Behind us, the room erupted into chaos. We took the elevator down. In the lobby, the screens were showing everything that had just played upstairs. People in the lobby were watching, phones out, recording. That went well, Colin said. That went perfectly. My phone was already buzzing. Texts from Drew, from Nora, from people I hadn't heard from in months. I ignored them all. We walked out onto the street. The morning had warmed up, and traffic moved past. The city kept going like nothing had happened. But something had happened. Allison's coronation had turned into her execution, and everyone who mattered had seen it. The fallout was immediate. By noon, 3 major investors had pulled out of upcoming projects. By 2 p.m., the industry journalists had published articles with headlines like Sollace Glass Controller Accused of Fraud and Construction Company Owner's Presentation Ends in Chaos. By evening, it was trending locally on social media. Zoe's posts defending her mother were getting ratioed into oblivion. People were sharing the video footage, the emails, the bank statements. It had all gone public. I turned my phone off. Nora called the office line. Colin answered, then handed me the phone. You need to see the news, she said. I don't want to. Graham, Victor just gave an interview. He's claiming you hacked the presentation system. We didn't hack anything. I know that, but he's loud, and he's on camera, and he's making accusations. Let him. We have documentation proving everything we showed came from legitimate company sources. There's something else. Allison's filing another emergency motion, this time claiming corporate sabotage. When's the hearing? Tomorrow morning. Patterson again. Good. He's starting to see through Victor's act. Don't get cocky. She might be desperate, but desperate people are unpredictable. After I hung up, Drew showed up at the office. He looked exhausted. Mom won't stop calling me, he said. She wants me to make a statement supporting her. Are you going to? No. I saw the books, remember? I know what she did. How is she? Honestly, I don't know. She won't talk to me anymore. Says I betrayed her. I'm sorry, Drew. Don't be. This isn't on you. He sat down heavily. Zoe's a mess, too. She's still posting defending Mom, but now people are sending her the evidence. She's deleting comments, blocking people. It's bad. She'll come around eventually. Will she? Or is this family just broken now? I didn't have an answer for that. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the presentation, about Allison's face when she realized what was happening, about the room full of people watching her world collapse. Part of me felt satisfied. Part of me felt hollow. I got up around 3 a.m. and drove to the office. I needed to see the books again, make sure everything was documented properly for tomorrow's hearing. The office was dark and quiet. I let myself in with my key and went to the conference room where we'd laid out all the evidence. Someone was already there, Allison. She was sitting at the table, surrounded by papers, her laptop open in front of her. How did you get in? I asked. I still have a key. It's still my company. Not for much longer. She looked up at me. Her makeup was smudged. Her perfect hair was disheveled. She looked like she'd aged 5 years in one day. You destroyed me, she said. You destroyed yourself. I just showed people what you'd done. Those emails were private. Those emails were corporate communications on a company server. Nothing private about them. She stood up suddenly, knocking her chair backward. I built this company just as much as you did. You managed the books. That's not the same thing. I brought in clients. I handled the finances. I made us profitable. By stealing. It wasn't stealing. It was restructuring. It was protecting our assets. Our assets, I repeated. not your personal accounts." She grabbed a stack of papers and threw them. They scattered across the room. "You never appreciated me. 26 years I stood beside you. 26 years I supported you. And the moment I try to secure my own future, you turn everyone against me." "You started planning this 3 years ago, Allison. 3 years before I even knew we had problems. Because I saw what was coming. I saw you getting older, getting slower. I saw the company stagnating. Someone had to think ahead. So you forged my signature, diverted payments, manipulated our children? I protected what was mine. It was never yours. That's the point." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she laughed. It was a brittle, broken sound. "Victor says we can still win. He says the evidence is inadmissible. He says..." Victor's won one case in his last 100. He's a marketing person, not a lawyer. He's my lawyer. That's your problem, not mine. She grabbed her laptop and started shoving papers into her bag. "Tomorrow, at the hearing, I'm going to tell the judge exactly what you did. How you sabotaged my presentation, how you humiliated me in front of my colleagues, how you... Go ahead. Patterson will ask if anything we showed was false. You won't be able to say yes." She stopped moving. "I hate you," she said quietly. "I know. I hope you're happy. I hope destroying me was worth it. I'm not destroying you, Allison. You did that yourself. I'm just protecting what's mine." She walked to the door, then stopped. "The kids will never forgive you. Drew already knows the truth. Zoe will figure it out eventually. She won't. She'll hate you forever. That's her choice." Allison left, letting the door slam behind her. I stood in the empty conference room, surrounded by scattered papers, and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, nothing. Just a strange kind of emptiness. The next morning's hearing was short. Victor tried to argue that the presentation had been sabotaged, that the evidence shown was inadmissible, that I should be held in contempt for corporate espionage. Patterson let him talk for about 5 minutes before cutting him off. "Mr. Harlan, let me ask you a simple question. Is any of the information shown at that presentation false?" Victor hesitated. "Your Honor, it's not about whether it's false." "Yes or no, Counselor?" "The emails are real, but..." "And the bank statements?" "Also real, but taken out of context." "And the forged signature?" Victor went quiet. Patterson turned to Allison. "Mrs. Sollace, did you or did you not divert company funds to personal accounts?" "I restructured certain assets for tax purposes." "Without your business partner's knowledge or consent?" "I had signing authority." "That's not what I asked." Allison looked at Victor. Victor looked at the table. Patterson leaned back. "Here's what I see. Unauthorized transactions, forged documents, misrepresentation to investors. Mrs. Sollace, I'm referring this to the district attorney." "Your Honor," Victor jumped up. "That's extreme, my client. Your client's actions appear criminal. It's my obligation to report." "This is a civil matter." "It was. Now it may be criminal. The DA will decide." He gathered his papers. "I'm also issuing a temporary order removing Mrs. Sollace from financial oversight of Sollace Glass and Facade. Mr. Sollace and Mr. Brooks will have sole control. We're done." Outside, Allison rounded on Victor. "You said we could win. You said the evidence wouldn't hold up. I said we had options. This is a setback." "A setback?" "He's sending me to the DA. We'll argue it's all a misunderstanding." "There is no misunderstanding. The emails are real. The accounts are real. Everything is real." Her voice echoed. People stared. "Mrs. Sollace," Victor whispered, "you need to calm down." "Calm down? My life is over. My clients are gone. My children won't speak to me." She turned and saw me. "This is your fault," she said. "You couldn't just let me go. You had to destroy everything." "You tried to steal my company," I said. "What did you think would happen?" "I tried to save it. You're too stubborn and too stupid to see it." A camera flashed. Someone recorded her meltdown. Realizing too late what she'd done, Allison fled, Victor chasing after her. Nora approached. That could have gone worse. "Could it?" I asked. "She could have actually won something." "Fair point." "What's next?" The company was safe. The trust untouched. My reputation intact. But I knew there was one fight left. "She'll go after the estate," I said. "My grandmother's house. She'll claim it's marital property." "Why? It's all she has left. And she knows what it means to me." "You're ready," Nora said. "I've been ready since the beginning." And just as predicted, 3 days later, Victor filed a motion claiming maintenance on the estate used company funds. an attempt to pull the property into marital assets. Everyone knew the argument was weak, but it gave Allison one last stage, one last fight, exactly what I was counting on. The hearing on the estate was scheduled for the following Monday, but Allison didn't wait that long. She called an emergency meeting, not with lawyers, not in court, at my grandmother's house. Colin forwarded me the email. Allison had sent it to all the major investors, Drew, Zoe, our accountant, and the financial board representative. The subject line read, "Final resolution." "Is she insane?" Colin asked. "No. She's desperate. Different thing." "You're going?" "Of course. So are you. Graham, this could be a trap." "It's not a trap. It's theater. She wants one more moment in front of an audience where she can control the narrative." "And you're going to let her have it?" "I'm going to let her try." The meeting was set for Saturday afternoon. I arrived early, opening up the old Victorian and turning on lights. The house felt strange with people coming. It had been quiet for so long. Nora arrived first, then Colin, then the financial board representative, a woman named Patricia who looked deeply uncomfortable about all of this. The investors came next, Thompson and two others. Then Drew. He nodded at me but didn't say anything. Finally, Allison arrived. She had Victor with her, plus her consultants. She dressed carefully, professional but not flashy. She was trying to look reasonable. "Thank you all for coming," she said, as if she'd organized some normal business meeting. "Mrs. Sollace," Patricia said, "I'm not clear on why we're here." "Because I want to resolve this, all of it, without more court battles and public spectacles." She looked at me. "Graham and I built something together. It's gotten ugly. But we're both professionals. We should be able to work this out." Thompson frowned. "Mrs. Sollace, you diverted company funds. That's not a negotiable issue." "Those funds were moved for legitimate corporate purposes. Without Mr. Sollace's knowledge. We had different management styles, but that doesn't make it fraud." Victor stepped forward with a folder. "We've prepared a proposal, a clean split. Mrs. Sollace retains certain client accounts and operates under a new entity. Mr. Sollace keeps the existing company. All financial matters are dropped." Victor handed out the papers. Nora didn't bother opening hers. "This proposal is nonsense," she said. "Mrs. Sollace has no clients left. They all terminated their contracts." "That's temporary," Victor tried. "Once the smoke clears, she'll be facing criminal charges," Nora replied. Allison's jaw tightened. "Fine. Then the estate. This house was maintained with marital assets. I'm entitled to half." "It's not marital property," I said. "It's an inherited trust." "That you maintained with company resources." "I used personal funds, documented. The trust prohibits commingling," Victor added. "We have receipts showing company funds." "Reimbursements to me," I said. "Not company spending." Thompson stood. "Mrs. Sollace, I don't understand what you think this achieves." "I'm trying to save everyone time. By claiming property that isn't yours? It should be mine. I supported Graham for 26 years. And defrauded him for at least 3, Thompson said. "My firm is withdrawing from all projects involving you." One of the investors nodded. Allison looked around, realizing she was losing everyone. "You're all being manipulated, just like Graham manipulated his grandmother." "Mom, stop," Drew said. "You don't understand. I saw the evidence. I know what you did." "Those were out of context." "No, they weren't," Zoe appeared. "I saw them too." "You're choosing him over me?" Allison asked. "I'm choosing the truth," Zoe said. "You stole from the company." Allison's face collapsed. "I did it for us." "You did it for yourself," Drew said. Silence. Allison snatched the proposal from the table, then froze. On top was her own email, calling me just a man with a truck. This wasn't in here. "I added it," Victor said. "For context." "You're supposed to be on my side. I'm representing your interests, and you can't win." She looked around at the room full of people no longer willing to defend her, and ran out the back door. I followed her into the rain. She stood on the stone steps, clutching the papers. "It's over," I said. "It's not. I won't let it be." She slipped, landing on the wet steps. The papers dissolved in the rain as everyone watched from the porch. Soaked, shaking, she looked up at me. "I hate you." I know." Drew and Zoe started toward her, but I stopped them. "Not yet." Victor approached with an umbrella. "Mrs. Sollace, we should go." She let him guide her away. Thompson came to me. "You handled this professionally. We'll resume projects under your sole management." People left one by one until only Drew and Zoe remained. "Dad," Drew said, "I'm sorry for not believing you." "You had no reason to." I still shouldn't have sided with her, Zoe added quietly. I posted things about you online. I'll delete them, and I'm sorry. Thank you. They left together. Colin and Nora were last. What now? Colin asked. Now we wait for the DA and rebuild. Think she'll try anything else? No, she's done. When everyone was gone, I stood alone in my grandmother's house, rain pounding the roof. I thought about that email. Just a man with a truck. Maybe I was. But I'd built something real, and no one could take that away. The DA's investigation took 3 weeks. In that time, Allison went quiet. No more social media posts, no more emergency motions, no more Victor Harlan interviews. Drew told me she'd moved in with her sister 2 states over. Zoe had deleted all her posts defending her mother. She'd posted one statement. I was wrong about some things. I'm sorry for spreading misinformation. The industry had moved on surprisingly fast. New projects came in, old clients came back, then the DA's report came back. Nora called me into her office to review it. They're charging her, she said. Wire fraud, forgery, corporate malfeasance. Prison time? Potentially. Depends on her plea. Will she fight it? Victor's already withdrawn. She's got a public defender now. The final court hearing was scheduled for Friday. Everything would be resolved, divorce terms, company ownership, asset division, all of it. Thursday night, Drew called. Dad, Mom wants to talk to you. About what? She asked if you'd meet her, tomorrow morning, before the hearing. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a coffee shop near the courthouse. Allison was already there when I arrived. She looked smaller somehow, older. Thank you for coming, she said. I sat down across from her. What do you want, Allison? To apologize. I hadn't expected that. The DA gave me a choice, plea deal or trial. My lawyer says I should take the deal. You should. 5 years probation, restitution, community service, and my name on a fraud conviction forever. She looked at her coffee cup. I've been thinking about what you said, about building things, and I realized I never built anything. I just rearranged what you built and tried to claim it. Allison, I don't know when I started seeing you as competition instead of partnership, but somewhere along the line, I convinced myself that I deserved more credit, more control. She looked up at me. I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I understand now what I did. Why are you telling me this? Because tomorrow, the judge is going to finalize everything, and I needed you to know that I'm not fighting anymore. Whatever terms you want, I'll accept them. We sat in silence for a moment. What will you do? I asked. I don't know. Start over somewhere. Try to rebuild a relationship with Drew and Zoe. She stood up. Goodbye, Graham. She walked out before I could respond. The next morning, the courthouse was quieter than before. No reporters, no audience. Patterson took his seat and reviewed his notes. We're here to finalize Sollace versus Sollace. I've reviewed all materials, all motions, all evidence. Here's what I'm ordering. He read through the terms. Company ownership to me and Colin, with no claims from Allison. Estate property confirmed as trust assets. Financial restitution to be paid as part of her criminal plea agreement. Mrs. Sollace, do you understand these terms? Yes, Your Honor. And you agree to them? Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Sollace? I agree, Your Honor. Patterson signed the documents. This divorce is finalized. This case is closed. 26 years of marriage, 6 months of war, all ended with a signature and a gavel. In the hallway, Drew and Zoe were waiting for me. How do you feel? Zoe asked. Relieved, I said, like I can finally breathe. Drew put a hand on my shoulder. We're proud of you, Dad, for standing up for what was right. My phone buzzed, a message from Colin. Client called, big project. Want to take the meeting tomorrow? I typed back, yes. Because that's what I did. I built things, and tomorrow I'd start building again. The estate settlement required one final meeting, a formal transfer of all documentation, witnesses present to verify everything was properly concluded. Nora had arranged it for the following week at my grandmother's house. The morning of the meeting, I arrived early, opened all the windows. The old Victorian needed fresh air. Drew and Zoe came together, then Colin and Nora, Patricia from the financial board, Thompson and one other investor, and Allison. She had her public defender with her, no Victor Harlan. We gathered in the dining room around my grandmother's old table. Nora laid out the final documents. Final signatures transferring all company control to Graham and Colin. Final acknowledgement of the criminal plea. Final restitution schedule. Once everyone signs, it's over. Patricia signed first, then the investors, then Colin, then me. Nora slid the papers to Allison. Mrs. Sollace? Allison's hand shook as she picked up the pen. There's something I need to say first. Everyone looked at her. In this room, in front of witnesses, I want to state clearly. Everything Graham accused me of was true. I diverted funds, I forged documents, I manipulated our children. Her voice was steady but quiet. You built something real, Graham, and I tried to take it. She looked at Drew and Zoe. Your father never lied to you about any of it. Every accusation I made was projection. Zoe was crying quietly. Allison picked up the pen and signed every document. When she finished, she stood up. That's everything. Nora nodded. That's everything. Drew stood up. Mom, wait. She stopped. We can still talk. You're still our mom. I know, and I'd like that. She left. Patricia gathered her papers. Is it done? Nora nodded. It's over. The investors and Patricia left. Colin followed. Drew and Zoe stayed a bit longer, then left too. Nora picked up her briefcase. You won, she said. Yes, I said. I did. After she left, I walked to my grandmother's study, pulled out the letter she'd written to me, read it one last time. Don't let her take what I built for you. I hadn't. I set the letter down and looked at my grandmother's photo. Then I heard a car in the driveway. Allison stood on the porch, soaked from the rain. I came back, she said. One more thing. She pulled a manila folder from her bag. These are the original share transfer documents, the ones I forged. She walked past me into the living room, knelt by the fireplace, struck a match, and set the papers on fire. We watched them curl and disappear, my forged signature turning to ash. When the last page crumbled, she stood. Now it's over, she said quietly. What you built was real. What I tried to build was smoke. She opened the door. Rain poured outside. Goodbye, Graham. She walked down the steps, got into her car, and drove away. I closed the door behind her and turned back into the house, my grandmother's legacy, a foundation that had held through every storm. In her study, I sat at the desk and opened my laptop. New project files waited. My phone rang. A contractor from the downtown renovation. Graham, can you start Monday? Yes, I said. I can. I hung up and glanced at my grandmother's photo again. She'd been right about everything. I lifted her old hammer from the wall, feeling its familiar weight. Solid, real, lasting. Just like everything I built. I set it back and smiled. Tomorrow I would start building again.